Okay, first scene of the show does a really good job at visually telling us what kind of story this is. Some sci-fi space shenanigans, and it really did deliver that for the entire run of the show. No, the first line of our main cast does a really good job at characterizing them. Here we see Vilgax. Just by looking at him, you know he's the bad guy, and he's really obsessed with the Omnitrix. We also get the idea that he's a really strong dude who's really confident, but it's really great how well the scene change here is utilized. As soon as Vilgax so confidently declares there's not a being in the galaxy who can stand in his way, enter our main character. It started when an alien device did what it did. No, I'm not going to sing the entire song today, but hey, it's a really good song nonetheless. At first, I didn't even know it was sung by a girl. I didn't know Ben was voiced by a girl when I first watched the show so many years ago either. The more you know. Now, our first moments with Ben gives us the idea he's just basically a regular kid with a regular life who doesn't really like school that much. Not unlike a lot of us when we were 10. Immediately after, we see that he doesn't turn a blind eye to someone getting picked on. Even if he himself can't really do much to remedy the situation, he attempts to help. This is a nitpick, but I'm just going to point out that this ungrateful kid has no eyeballs. Moving on. Upon meeting Gwen for the first time, we can tell the two don't really get along very well, but they don't hate each other. Our first few interactions with Gwen lets us know that she's pretty smart and or organized. For Grandpa Max, we get that he's a nice old man, but also respected by his grandkids. He's also the leader of the group, which is pretty nice even though the show is about Ben. Now we get to the first of many of Grandpa's very weird dishes, and our very first reactions from Ben and Gwen to being served a plate of worms. Justified, I might add. Also, if you were anything like me, you probably did notice that this specific blast was the one who put Vilgax in that chamber thing for basically the whole of season 1. I like how he's still pretty well drawn, even mid frame. Can I for a second just talk about how abnormal it is for a 10-year-old to be walking around the woods alone, in the dark, at night, and unafraid? Like, that's actually crazy. And it's here we get literally the biggest plot points in the entire show. And that's Ben being the original Eren Yeager. So the story goes Grandpa's alien girlfriend, quote, sent the Omnitrix intending for it to get to Max. But right where the thing seems to just change course is where Ben turned into Cannonbolt and knocked it off course and right at young Ben. Because later on in the story, yeah, Ben can time travel. Nice. And right about there is when Ben turned into Armadillo and caused Ben to fall off into the hole, leading to him getting the Omnitrix. I wonder if this was all planned from the beginning for real. Anyone else think it's abnormal that a kid sees a space pod, glowing green, middle of the woods, and still decides to try to pick it up? No? Well, I guess his reaction is justified, but geez, even though I'm still glad that they kept this consistent about Ben throughout the entire series, but geez. Also, something I think is really cool is that in this episode called And Then There Were 10, which is the first episode, Ben transforms first into the 10th alien, which I think is just really cool. Now we have Ben's reaction to transforming for the first time. We saw that he looked a bit scared while the transformation was going on, but not gonna lie, this reaction from a 10-year-old being on fire doesn't really connect, to be honest. Seems a bit comical. But this was on Cartoon Network. I don't think a woeful scream would sit well with the audience. Then, of course, Ben's first instinct was to cause a forest fire. The episode really does hammer it in that this family is not normal. Because why is Gwen alone in a forest fire? Like, I know Grandpa Max ran into the flames too, but Gwen is by all means on her own in a forest fire. And what kind of reaction is that to seeing a flame monster? What? Yeah, we'll see that reactions are things that are severely underdone in this series. Also, Gwen is in the middle of a forest fire and there is no sign of sweat whatsoever. So do with that whatever you will. Like, are sweat glands just not a thing? Because this fire is raging, bro, and there is no sign of sweat on anybody. Anybody that's human, not talking about men. But do their sweat glands just not work? Hello?
Monster forever?
He's not a monster. He's an alien.
For the first time in the series, we get the idea that Grandpa Max knows a lot more than what he lets on. Now, there's a lot more of these things in season 1 leading up to the last episode, but this one is certainly the first one.
Look, if I can figure this thing out, maybe I can help people. I mean, really help them. Not just, make things worse.
Now, of course, you realize that this is a throwback to the very first scene of us seeing Ben trying to help somebody and realizing that he actually felt bad about making the situation worse and not actually helping the guy. And now he actually has something that if he figures it out, he can be the hero he wants to be. Not gonna lie, man, these transformations actually look pretty painful, but I guess they're not, so we move. No, Wild Mutt is a Volpe man, so. And at one time I was confused because, like, I was wondering why this thing can actually smell shapes, but moving on. Now, I didn't mention it before, but Heat Blast is a Pyronite. That's a misplaced comment, but hey, it doesn't matter. I know there's that janky 2005 animation. Like, did he just jump 10 feet into the air just to move like 1 meter on the ground? What? Now, be it known unto all that Wild Mutt can smell shapes, even though that makes absolutely no sense because there's no possible way that one could actually smell shapes. So that's how he sees. He smells shapes. So he's smelling those things coming towards him. Now, the thing coming towards him and him smelling it, it makes a bit of sense because maybe you could argue that he's smelling the gasoline or whatsoever is added to it. But, come on now. But, yeah, this show never claimed to be logical, but we move. We move. We move. Now, something happened here that will be a big talking point for me for the rest of this season, and that is, how on earth did Gwen take this thing out with a shovel? It's either the material that made this stuff is just garbage, or that shovel is just massively OP, or Gwen is uber strong, or that this stuff just does not make sense any at all. The shovel didn't even bend. Does that mean Vilgax is making robots that are less durable than a shovel? Yeah, keep that in mind. I'll bring it up in another episode. Now, this is Ben's first time transforming into a Petrosapien Diamond Head. Now, two things. When the watch was coded, was this black and white gear coded into it? Is it some sort of optimal gear for his aliens? We don't know because it was never explained. Also, Diamond Head's eyes activate a glow in this episode a couple of times, which I don't recall seeing in any other episode. What's up with that? Now here's another beautiful mid-frame, just take that one in. But also, here we see the fight ensue between Diamond Head and this robot. Now, knowing what we know already that this robot, the material that this thing is made out of is less durable than a shovel, assuming this thing is consistent, we know that this thing stands absolutely no chance whatsoever against Diamond Head, which is somewhat demonstrated because Ben here is quite calm. Even though he's getting hit, he's very, very, very calm because this thing, it doesn't do a lot of damage. To Ben, at least. Now, this here is a nitpick, but I'm just gonna say that this doesn't make sense that Ben was able to cut this whole tree in half like that, because just looking at where he's standing, yeah, he would not be able to just rip the entire tree in half. Also, we see here that this robot's arm was just so easily destroyed by Diamond Head. It's, let's just say, it's not a good look for the main villain's lackeys in the very first episode for a very, very inexperienced 10-year-old.
Failure. Unbelievable. The puny earth being that is keeping the Omnitrix from me.
I don't know, man. I think you just need to build better robots, because your robots are right now just garbage. Like their record is losing to a 10-year-old girl and losing to a 10-year-old boy. Yeah, skill issue. Build a better robot. Now the episode wraps up with Ben going XLR8, pretty creative name there, which is a Kinceleron. Overall, I think this episode was a good one, like a rather 8 out of 10. It displayed 4 out of Ben's current 10 aliens, and that gives us a great idea of what to look forward in the coming episode. So yeah, one episode down out of 51 more to go for Ben 10 Classic. Until next time, this has been your host, Tug the Guy, and this is Overanalyzing Ben 10. See you next time.